Hi, good afternoon. This is Meredith Lego, and I am doing some YouTube videos on Ascension science or the expansion of consciousness. And if you're new to this channel, I actually would highly recommend that you actually go back to the beginning if you haven't done that, because there's a lot of fundamental building blocks of information that I learned over time. And highly instructive material. So this isn't based upon, items that are going on in the news that is time bound. This is kind of like these fundamental learnings about the mechanics or science behind some of the ascension of our consciousness. And along the way, I also share some information that I've been able to channel from extra dimensional beings. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be sharing an experience that I personally had of layering in codes that essentially continue to create more integration layers to the higher self. So I want to describe the experience that I had, because as I was, going through this experience, I was always wondering, like, what's everybody else experiencing? Not that it has to be replicated or copied, but you're just kind of curious on your journey, like what others might be going through during a consciousness awakening process. And so I just wanted to share this download that I got and the experience that I had with it. So basically, I was meditating one evening, and I started to hear basically some information coming through. And this was coming through from a collective consciousness or sort of a higher aspect, I think, of myself as well. It was hard to tell. But essentially, the message that I got was that the fireworks within are setting forth a new era for humanity. The codes you have received are more soul level integrations designed to lock in the higher frequencies permanently. Now, as this was happening, so that was the message. It was actually quite simple. But as this was happening, I saw very clearly, clairvoyantly, essentially almost like a stacking of Russian dolls, if you will. If you kind of go back to, you've got like a big doll and a small doll and a smaller doll or a smaller doll, all kind of stacking within them. But I essentially saw a sphere, and it was a larger sphere. And then under that, there was a slightly smaller sphere, and then a slightly smaller sphere, and then a slightly smaller sphere. And each of these spheres had very, very complex geometric patterns that were inside them, and they were slightly different. And the only way that I can describe what I saw, and they were very vivid, different colors, but very vivid, almost like neon type coloring, between blue and magenta. So these were the types of colors that I was seeing. But essentially, if you do any research on the study of seeing sound, which is cymatics, and I would encourage you to do that if you haven't, because it essentially helps us see the geometric patterns that can be formed through sound and sound frequency. But essentially, it was the patterns that you might see produced when sand is vibrating on a Chladni plate at very, very, very high frequencies. So in those particular cases, the patterns tend to get very, very intricate and very refined. So I was seeing these spheres that had different patterns within them. And essentially the top one started to collapse into the next one, which collapsed into the next one, which collapsed into the next one. And then it integrated into my center line, if you will, which would be almost a center column that runs up through your chakra system, up the central nervous system or the spine. And as this was happening, I got very tired all of a sudden because I was, receiving some codes. But what was interesting, as this was happening, I somehow knew that these were higher aspects of the soul starting to integrate in. So the Christos aspect, the monadic aspect, the oversoul, and the soul. So these are like different aspects that we're starting to lock in into the physical body that I'm, experiencing right now. But as it was happening, I was also perceiving that it was only half the equation, because I somehow knew in the moment that the second half of me, I don't know if that's an antimatter parallel, also still had to receive these codes for completion. Not an interesting message coming. Well, it was an interesting message, but it was obviously very intended for me. But just did want to share it because obviously we each have different experiences as we're starting to awaken and turn on different higher sensory perceptions, and wanted to share that experience. And of course, if you've gone through anything interesting like that, I would love to see your experiences in the comments section, because that's how we all learn and grow from each other as we're starting to awaken higher aspects of our frequency. So with that, if you liked the video, I would encourage you to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new, to subscribe, because these are the types of materials that I would be posting. And with that, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in future videos. Thanks. Goodbye.